Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation today is from Vadhans Ki Var, the 19th Paudi. The saloks are compositions of the third Nanak. The first salok, Salok Mahalla Tija, Manhath Kinai na Paio, Sab thakke karm kamai. ਮਨਹਠ ਭੇਖ ਕਰ ਭਰਮ ਦੇ ਦੁਖ ਪਾਇਆ ਦੂਜੈ ਪਾਏ ਰਿੱਧ ਸਿੱਧ ਸਭ ਮੋਹ ਹੈ ਨਾਮ ਨ ਵਸੈ ਮਨ ਆਏ ਗੁਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਤੇ ਮਨ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਹੋਵੈ ਅਗਿਆਨ ਅੰਧੇਰਾ ਜਾਏ ਨਾਮ ਰਤਨ ਘਰ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਹੋਆ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਹਿਜ ਸੁਭਾਏ. So this salok lays out the problem being addressed, and the problem is what is called manhठ. Manhठ kinai na paio, sab thakke karm kamai. So translated it means, manhঠ means being self-willed, being obdurate, being willful, being stubborn. So it's a word that is used for those living in the ego. Manhঠ. Kinai na paio. Nobody has ever found. Found what? That is implied. It is not spelled out in this line, but it is implied that such a mind, such an individual who engages in self-willed obduracy has never found the self, that wisdom, because it has been engaged in needless religious ritual, which brings nothing more than weariness. So, manhठ kinai na paio, you're not going to find it. Sab thakke karm kamai. Karam here is religious ritual. The actions, religious actions that people perform. And that, the Guru tells us, brings you nothing but weariness and tiredness. But the mind is stubborn. It carries on. It keeps doing that because it is habituated. The next line, Manhath pekh kar paramade. Manhath, that same mind, is giving us an example. The headstrong wander about in religious garb. But what does that do for them? It only brings them sorrow, because the wearing of religious garb is really a way of separating yourself from the others. It is a way of asserting an ego identity, if you will. And that's the problem. That is the problem. And that brings nothing but sorrow. So manhठ pekh kar paramade. They just wander around, walking around, strutting about in their religious garb. But what do they find? Dukha paya. Why? Duje pai. Because they are taken up with the world of phenomena, the muck outside. Then now having spoken about religious garb that people wear, another reason that people engage in external practices is riddh siddh, occult powers. And in the Indian tradition, they're very defined. There are 8 such powers. The power to become universally big, the power to become as small as an atom, the power to become invisible, and so on. There's 8 of these. And every religious practitioner, not every, but that is the thrust of religious practice, is to acquire these these occult powers. The Guru is saying, riddh siddh sab, all of this, moh hai. It's a delusion that stems out of attachment. And what is going to happen is, in your chase for these occult powers, naam na vasai, mani aaye, your mind, your heart cannot absorb wisdom of Naam. because your mind is elsewhere. And why would you want powers? It's essentially power over others. So this is the self-assertion, the intransigent behavior of the ego that is being pointed out. And now the Guru comes, switches, and says, look, Gur seva te man nirmal hove. Only by serving the Guru Enlightener can you cleanse your mind of all this rubbish. Nirmal means without filth, without dirt. But what is the dirt? It is the ego. This is a reference to the ego. Because agyan andhera jaye, because the ego is the one that is in darkness, that is in delusion. So gur seva te man nirmal hove. And then naam ratan ghar pargat hua. The jewel of self-knowledge is revealed within. Not only that, but Nanak sahaj samay, with effortless ease. So here's the thing. You don't have to subject yourself to physical deprivation. You don't have to subject the body to all manner of unnatural exercises in order to obtain this wisdom. The jewel is already inside of you. You just need Guru guidance to reach there. Second slok, Mahalla Tija. Sabad-a-day sadhana ayo. Sabad-a-day sadhana ayo. Sad means enjoyment, taste, flavor. Na ayo. So what it means here is that without an appreciation of the Guru's message, the word, his instruction, or the Guru's instruction, Sabad-a-day sadhana ayo. If you don't have an appreciation for the Guru's word, then Naam na lago pyar, you cannot develop an affinity for the self, for the knowledge of the self, which is what we ought to be looking for. So that affinity, that attraction cannot be created. One has to be attracted to the goal before one even begins to move in that direction, you see. So sabad-a-day sadhana ayo naam na lago pyar. Then what happens is you persist. Rasna phikka bolana nit nit hoye khwar. Rasna phikka. Phikka means insipid. Rasna stands for the tongue, but it is a reflection of the mind. So your speech, in other words, your thought process remains insipid, uninspiring, dull, and nit nit hoye khwar. What that means is that your thought process is such that your mind does not abate, that it does not still the mind. You see, our thought process should be such that it stills the mind, that it brings tranquility. But Phikka Bolna, on the other hand, does the opposite. It agitates the mind. Because if you speak insipid speech, it affects your mind. It agitates your mind. Nanak kirtapaya kamamana koi na mitanhar. But Nanak says this is all the result of habit, past deeds, kirtapaya kamamana. Once you've established patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, then koi na mitanhar, no one can erase that because it is so powerful, which is why you need the Guru. Paudi, and this is an evocation to the Guru. This is singing to the glory of that Satguru who breaks these patterns of behavior. So Tan, blessed, Satpurkh Satguru Hamara, the true being, my guide, the Satguru, the source, the medium, is the true being. Jit miliya, meeting that agency, that individual, if you will, or that hamko sant aaye. First thing that happens, your mind becomes calm. And then what happens? Tan Satpurkh Satguru Hamara. This is the refrain. This is a poetic style. The second benefit, Jit miliya, hum har bhagat pai. Devotion. My mind learns to devote itself. And devotion means not being scattered. There was this line there that said, Nit nit hoye khwar, rasana phikka bolana. That stops. Your mind is not scattered anymore. It is engaged in, it's devoted to whatever it sets its mind to. And then again, tan tan har pagat sat guru hamara, jiski seva te hum har naam live lie. It builds that attraction for naam, live lie. It brings me closer. It brings me into the field of naam so that I'm pulled towards it. And tan tan har gyani satguru hamara. The Satguru is enlightened. Jin veri mitra humko sab sam drisht dikhai, who broke my delusion of the difference between enemy and friend. The Guru taught me that it is all oneness. There is no enemy. There is no friend, in a manner of speaking. We are all established in that same oneness. And in the end, praiseworthy is that Satguru, Tan Tan Satguru Mitra Hamara, our guide, who has made me embrace love, unconditional love for wisdom. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.